Hey, everybody, welcome back to Learning Interrogation with the Empathy Method. I'm Sergio Dinaro. I'm a retired federal agent and a former human intelligence collector with the Department of Defense. And today I'll be continuing to teach you everything you need to know about how to reveal the whole truth in any situation. In our first episode, we touched on the fact that verbal analysis is the foundation of the empathy method. And today we're going to build on that. Being successful with interrogation and deception detection is all about understanding the system and having confidence in the system. Today, we're going to look at our first founding principle, and we're going to check out the first rule of deception detection, and hopefully begin to build some confidence in this area. So Alice, what's the first principle of the empathy method?
Principle number 1 is that the shortest and easiest way to say something is the only right way to say it. Thus, any deviation from this principle constitutes a tactic of deception. This principle is a constant for us that we will continue to build upon moving forward. Now, let's take a look at this principle in action.
Thank you, Alice. Now, let's keep in mind here that what we're talking about is responding to a direct accusation. We're not talking about general, everyday, telling a story to your buddy kind of a thing. Also, I'm not saying that there's only one grammatically correct way to get your point across. What we want to focus on here is there's only one way to respond to a direct accusation, and that's with the shortest, simplest answer. When somebody accuses you of a wrongdoing, cheating, whatever, when somebody accuses you of that, when you're under that pressure and that stress, and you're not guilty, you need to get the information that you have in your head, you want to get that out as fast and direct as possible. This is not the type of situation where you're going to sit here and make jokes or delay that information coming out. Let's take a look at some examples of what we're talking about here so that we can get a feel for this. Now that we've taken a look at the first principle of the empathy method, let's take a look at our first rule. So the principles are building that foundation. The rules are what guide us during an interrogation. Think of it as the principles being the strategic foundation, and the rules are our tactical level, is what we use in the moment. So Alice, what you got for us for the first rule of interrogation?
The first rule of the empathy method is that we will believe what the subject tells us, but only what the subject tells us. If the subject says it directly, then it happened. But if the subject didn't say it, then it didn't happen.
In analyzing this statement, the first question you want to ask yourself is, I have a statement of denial from my subject. Is it possible that every word in this denial is true and that the subject still did it? Basically, are they insinuating that this is a denial? Am I being tricked into believing that this is a denial when in reality, every word in this statement could be possibly true and that they still did it? The first rule in utilizing the empathy method is that we believe what the subject tells us, but we're not going to believe what the subject doesn't tell us. Before we get ahead of ourselves here, let's look at a statement. This is a statement from a murder suspect who was later convicted. While we're looking at the statement, I want you to think to yourself, is it possible that literally everything in this statement is true and that it sounds like a denial, but it actually isn't a denial? There's no denial in this statement. Let's take a look at it and see what you think.
I was in the house and I heard a gunshot in the kitchen. I ran to my wife to see if she was okay, but she was already dead.
When he says, I was in the house and I heard a gunshot in the kitchen, could he be the person standing in the kitchen and still hear the gunshot? And if so, would this statement still be true? Yes. Then he goes on to say, I ran to my wife to see if she was okay, but she was already dead. Could he have run to his wife to check if she was dead? Or as he put it, if she was okay? Also, yes. This entire statement could be true, and he could still be the killer. So this is not a denial. Now, back to you, Sergio.
Now let's start to build on this fundamental bit of logic and take this to the next level. Based on rule number 1, we can now infer that if the subject needed to get a detail across to us, for example, that they didn't do it, the phrase, I didn't do it, is the only phrase that means that they actually didn't do it. But that they chose not to tell you that, then that detail is not true. Think about that for a second. If your boss sits you down and says that she believes that you stole money from the company, which you didn't do, by the way, in this example, are you going to dance around the response and not be forthcoming with your boss? Are you going to make fun of her or ask a bunch of random questions. No, you are going to set the record straight as fast as humanly possible. Rule number one for us, that we will believe what the subject tells us, but that we won't believe something if the subject doesn't tell us that, which means that we can infer that if they should have told us a piece of information and they didn't, that that piece of information isn't true.
I'll do anything that you guys want me to do. Okay. I'll do a DNA test. I'll do anything. Okay. Whatever you guys tell me to do, I'm going to do it.
Okay. There's no doubt in my mind that you killed her. I don't know if you killed her because she was mad.
No.
Or you was mad.
Check everything. Please check everything.
Kevin, there is no doubt in my mind. Kevin, you have to realize, I've been doing this for over 20 years.
I want you to tell me what happened.
I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I did not kill her. You know where I was every single point of the day. There were people with me every single point of the day. And no, I did not do this.
There's a bloody print on the bulb of the lamp, and it's yours.
That's impossible.
Without a doubt, it is your print. The only way that print could have got there was in the process of the crime. The print got put there when she was hit with the lamp.
No! Because I didn't do it! 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 Some scumbag did this to my girlfriend, and I only get put in jail for it, and I didn't do it.
Now let's discuss a hypothetical scenario here. Let's say you own a retail store and your CPA came to you this morning and told you that last night after closing, register number one was $1,000 short. And the only employee who worked on that register yesterday was Quagmire. Now, you don't have any security cameras in your store, so you figure the best way to resolve this situation as quickly as possible is just to sit down with your employee and interrogate them. Now, most people will say, I'm just going to sit down and have a conversation with them. But the reality is, if there's an accusation there, this is an interrogation. So you take your employee to a back office with a witness present, you sit them down and you explain to them, it's come to my attention that money has come up missing from your register, amongst other things in the store. And then you ask them, have you been taking money from the store? The only truthful response to this accusation is, no, I didn't take any money. So if they ask you something like, how much money was missing, or what else is missing other than the money, then that constitutes a tactic. And you can be fairly certain at that point that they are the person responsible for the missing money from the register. Now, you might be thinking, that doesn't sound right to me. I could see myself asking the question, how much money was taken, just out of sheer curiosity. That leads me to my next point, and you'll probably start to see a pattern here. The way the question is asked matters. If you sat your employee down and said, yesterday there was money missing from your register, then they will automatically, anybody would automatically ask you how much money was missing. And that's when you were thinking that would be your response to that question. That would be in response to this type of scenario. Because in that scenario, you didn't actually ask a question. What you said was, it's come to my attention that money has come up missing from your register. That's a statement. There's no question there. And so if all you do is make a statement, you're not forcing the subject to respond to anything. And if they don't have to respond, they're not going to respond. So in that circumstance, all they're going to do is to try and gather as much information as they can from you. Now, you're giving the power to them and they become the interrogator and they start asking you questions. So they'll ask you, how much money came up missing? What else came up missing? So you want to be very careful to ask the right question, the right accusation question in that moment when you begin that interrogation. You got to ask it correctly. You got to ask it directly, and it has to end with a question mark. So remember, when you ask that question, you want to say, it's come to my attention that there's money that's come up missing, among other things, and then ask the question, have you been taking money from the store? Because that direct question requires a direct answer. So keep in mind, the point where you sit your employee down, that begins an interrogation. Even though you're not a police officer, unless you are a police officer, but even if you're a retail manager, at the point where you sit down your employee, that becomes an interrogation, and thus requires that you ask a direct accusatory question, like, Quagmire, after closing the store last night, it's come to my attention that there was theft from the store last night, including money from your register. Did you take that money? Can you feel the dynamic that that creates? Can you feel that stress and that pressure that has just been put down on to quagmire here. So now imagine again, would you feel comfortable in that situation, making light of it or asking questions like, how much money was taken? You wouldn't, because you can't ignore the weight of that question. Plus, if you didn't take it, then you now are going to feel a tremendous pressure to make the interrogator believe you. You know the truth, and you need to get that truth to the interrogator.
Do you know if it's a crime that you to have sex with a girl that's 13 years old?
Yes, sir.
You knew it was a crime to do that? Then why'd you come here?
I was stupid.
You were stupid?
Here it says, I am just having problem convincing myself it's okay to be with a minor.
Because she kept asking me and I told her it's not right. I was just coming here to check on her if she's okay.
You don't do that for a stranger.
Jeff, that's the mistake.
I swear to God.
So you can sit here and tell me that you didn't have any intent to have sex this time? Okay, I can believe that. But I'm telling you, I don't believe it that you didn't intend to have sex at some point with this girl.
I swear to God, sir, I was
it would have happened.
Sir,
okay?
I swear to God it was
not. You know
not.
what? I guarantee you it would have happened. You're no different. All right?
Sir, I'm not. I'm
every
telling you.
guy, first time, third time meeting, fifth time meeting, it would have happened because you...
And what were your intentions when you got here?
I was intentions to be pleasurable and pleasure her, but I might not have done the actual penetration. I just wanted to see how it went. That's all, you know.
Okay. Now you're gonna have to define pleasurable for me.
Did you talk to her about touching and kissing and making each other feel good?
I remember she saying that she had trouble finding somebody to make her feel good.
Okay.
I was playing with her.
And then you told her, no, I'm real, but you're under 18 and I'm over. We would have to be so careful.
I don't remember saying that, but I told her that she needed to be, I was concerned about her. She needed to be careful.
Okay.
You had intentions to at least have oral sex with her.
Yeah.
And how old did she tell you that she was?
She said going on 14. I knew I screwed up talking to a girl that age. I knew.
How would you feel if this was your 15-year-old or your 11-year-old or your 13-year-old? How would you feel?
I feel awful.
That's it? Just awful?
No, I mean,
you were pretty much down here tonight, 100 miles away from home, to do what you were going to do and damage this child's mind for the rest of her life.
What made you want to come over here?
Never met anybody before, actually.
Have a hamburger with a 14-year-old child?
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound a little unusual?
Sounds stupid.
Okay.
He tries to explain that he was...
And so when you were coming here today to see Claire, what were you guys going to do?
Just be friends.
Just sit and look at each other?
Just sitting there talking, watch TV or whatever. Play games.
As reality sets in, dude.
Look, yes, reality sets in right when I stepped out my front door.
You're right.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
And
you're exactly right. That's where the crime occurred.
No.
The minute you stepped out your front door,
and you
were headed toward having to meet with a 13-year-old girl to have sex with.
Well, I've read all your text messages that you had with this young female, all right? That's what this all is, all right? And you repeat several times, erase our conversations, you know, I can get a lot of trouble with this, so you knew exactly what you were doing.
Yes, that's right.
There's no doubt in my mind or anybody that sees this, you knew exactly what you were doing, all right?
But that didn't mean I was going to actually do it.
Sitting on your computer at home and enjoying the play, talking, is one thing.
If I was gonna have sex with her, I would have brought condoms.
Okay. It doesn't look good for you because you're lying the whole time. We already have what you said.
No,
so when you say, wait, let me finish. When you say the whole time that all this was for was to come meet a girl to play video games, that's a lie. See?
Okay, this brings me to another point. When you do get to that moment where you sit someone down and you ask them that direct confrontational question, you want to give them as little information as you can. So before you sit them down, you need to sit and write down the question and make it as vague as possible. Initially, you want to give away as little information as you can and make the situation seem larger than what you're aware of, because it almost always is. You will almost never catch somebody the first time that they do something. So if you're aware that there's $1,000 missing from the till, nobody steals $1,000 the first time out. So it means that this has been going on for a while. You want to be vague when you ask that confrontational question, and you want this to make it sound much larger than it is. So once you sit them down, the stress is not just on them. You will feel a tremendous amount of stress and pressure on yourself as well. Common mistake that beginning interrogators will often make is they think that they want to overwhelm the suspect with information. I know everything. I have all the information. And if you can just overwhelm them with information, they're just going to break down immediately. Oh, you got me. But in reality, that doesn't happen. It almost never happens that way, because the subject, if they're guilty, they already know all the details. So no amount of details that you give them is going to overwhelm them. The only thing that it can do is underwhelm them. If you tell them everything you know, and that's only a tenth of what they've done, they're going to start to feel relief. Even though to you, you're thinking, wow, I'm piling this on heavy now. In reality, to them, they now know that there's stuff that they've done that you are unaware of. So now they only need to come up with an alibi for the stuff that you are directly accusing them of right now. So you want to make this sound bigger, because if the suspect is guilty, then you need them to think and believe that you know everything. However, it doesn't really matter if the suspect is innocent, because you can say $1,000, you can say $1 million. If they're innocent, they are going to take the same action to try and show you that they're innocent. Honesty looks the same no matter how severe the consequences are. Their answer will come across the same every time. I didn't do it. I didn't take that. So keep in mind, it's dangerous to give them information, because if you give them any information that's incorrect, now they know that you're flying by the seat of your pants here, that you have an inclination that something is wrong, but you don't have sufficient evidence. You don't really know what they've done. And all they need to do now is just sit there and keep their mouth closed. So remember, when you first go into this, you want to try and give up as little information as you can. So let's flesh out this example a little bit. Let's say Quagmire actually did steal $1,000 yesterday, but has stolen $20,000 over the course of the last couple months, and has stolen a bunch of merchandise. Now, I used to work long time ago, before all of my specialized training, I used to work in loss prevention. And this is something that I have a lot of experience in. And when an employee is stealing, especially when they get to the point that they're stealing money right out of the register, they've probably been stealing merchandise out the back dock door for a while. So remember, you need to be as general as possible. And this works in everything. If you catch your spouse cheating, it's probably not the first time. They've probably been doing it for a while, and you're just catching them now. So it doesn't matter what the incident was. To you, what matters in that moment is that you ask the questions the right way, so that you set yourself up to be able to get all of the information back from them. I'm going to remind you a couple times throughout this, the shortest, most direct, fastest way to say something is the only correct way to say it. The phrase that you're looking for is, I didn't do it.
Me and Genova both were housekeepers back in July at a hotel. When Genova was cleaning her room, she found some money in the room, and she came and got me and showed me the money. And then we both left the room. And when we left the room, both of us was outside of the door joking, playing at the door, and I had the key, and I was playing with my key on the door. But I never went back inside the room. After we got through joking at the door, I went my way and she went her way. But the lock system in the hotel showed that I went back, it showed me playing at the door with my key. Then it comes up that the money goes missing, and I didn't do it. So the next day, I get a phone call from the boss at the hotel, and they was telling us that we had a meeting the next morning. After the meeting, but we both were fired.
You took a lie detector test, and we asked you, did you participate with anyone to take any of the missing money from that hotel room? You answered no, you told the truth. Do you know for sure who took any of the missing money from that hotel room? You answered no, you told the truth. Did you take any of the missing money from that hotel room? You answered no, and you told the truth.
Now let's wrap this up here. Remember, the first principle is that the shortest, most direct way to say something is the only correct way to say it. So even if you have a total meltdown the first time that you start an interrogation, if the only thing that you can remember is that the proper cadence in a conversation where you're accusing someone of something and they have to defend themselves is a direct and timely question and response, question and response. You're not asking them anything they can't remember. If you remember back to the last episode, you're not asking them what they bought their mom for Christmas 2 years ago. You're asking them something that's very pertinent right now that they just did that is causing them stress. There's no way that if you're talking to somebody about this, that it's not already causing them stress anyways. So those answers are going to be right on the top of their head. And this leads us to our first rule, which is that we will believe everything that the subject tells us. We are not going to assume that the subject is lying, because lying is too difficult to do. And the reason for that is because lying is almost impossible. What we're looking for is deception. We have faith in the subject. That can be a very hard pill to swallow if you have indicators that your spouse is cheating on you. But this is the way we go about doing our business. This is how we don't make mistakes. We are looking for what the subject is actually telling us. If they tell us that they didn't do it, then they didn't do it. However, the subject has to tell us the truth. If the subject did say it, it did happen. But if the subject didn't say it, it didn't happen. Now, this is particularly important when we're looking at what should the subject be telling us. They should be saying that they didn't do it. And if they very specifically don't tell us that they didn't do it, then they didn't do it is not true because they didn't tell us that. So at the point where you ask that question, now you have two things that you can look for: that 2-second pause, or a response that is not, no, I didn't do it. I hope this episode was interesting. We are starting to get into the good stuff, so stick with me. Every episode from here on out is going to have indicators, rules that you can look for, and everything is going to be very usable in everyday life. If you have a question, just leave me a comment and I'll get back to you and I'll give you my opinion on it. Thanks for watching and keep seeking the truth.